Hi everyone. Yeah. Now, the first thing, disclaimer, is that when I said how to handle, your energy, how to manage your energy, stress, and anxiety, when I said that, I know that this is not. I'm very clearly talking about people with no issues with respect to depression and anxiety in general as a health condition. Right now, we start story time. Yeah. So I always start the session with a story. So the story goes back to the year 2017. So in the year 2017, I took the GMAT for the second time, or rather, I was preparing for the GMAT for the second time, not much of a preparation. I was based out of Pune and I was handling the IMS business for the whole of Pune. I had attended a GMAT summit in Jan, and they said that if they want to give us a certificate that you've attended that summit and you are certified, I attended the academic summit that they have, then I would have to take the test. So IMS sponsored the test, and that's how I took the test for the second time. The first time around, I had taken it, on my own. So during that time, obviously, I was completely, busy with work and everything else, right? And in my first, I was busy with work and everything. I was, doing work, meeting students in the evening. And I remember I took exactly, two mocks. And those two mocks, I had taken the additional mocks. I had purchased those two GMAT official mocks. And I used to take that after 11 o'clock at night. I think both the mocks I took at night. First mock, I got 760. Second mock, I got 770, right, in both of these mocks. In one of the mocks, I didn't get a 51 on the quant, and in the other, but I got a 47 on the verbal. On the second mock, I got a 51 on the quant, but I didn't get a 47. I got a 45 or 44 or something on the verbal, or a 40, lower than that. So I thought 770 was decent, and maybe once I go into the test, one thing I know about the GMAT is if you don't see it on practice, you don't get it. So I was expecting 770 only, and I went into the test. Right. So I go into the test, and I'll tell you about the tension or slight those things later. But in the test, what happened was I went in, and the test was going on well. It was absolutely smooth. And somewhere in the quant section, so I finished. This was before you could choose your order. So it was AWA essay, analysis of an essay, analysis of an argument. So I finished the two AWA sections. Sorry, one essay and one integrated reasoning section. Half an hour of that. 75 minutes I finished of verbal, and then of quant, and then I the verbal section at the end. Somewhere towards the last quarter of the verbal section, suddenly somewhere there, I just, suddenly I felt as if I woke up. I don't know, I'll tell you the exact feeling that I got. I woke up and I suddenly felt that, okay, in the last 15 minutes, what was I doing? Because in the last 15 minutes, I was just marking my answer options based on gut feel, but not through my process. So I have a clear process to solve RC, to solve CR, to solve SC, and I follow that process, and I don't solve by intuition. And I realized that in that last 15 minutes, my brain had actually switched off. My brain switched off because it was tired, and I actually was solving it not using my process. It's like your back is straight and your back actually drops because you don't realize that you have dropped your back. Similarly, the mind was straight and I dropped that, and then I realized, I'm like, oh my god, what was happening? And then I went in and I again switched on and I did everything. Came out, I got a 770. That was fine. But when I looked at the scorecard, I had a 51 in what you call it, in quant, but verbal I didn't even get a 45. I got a 44. I got a 42, and my normal level is a 44, 45. Right? And I was like, what happened? And I stepped out, and I was stepping out to get into my car and everything else. And the funny story is that the attendant who conducts who's there just around handling that center. So he looked at and this thing, and he looked at me and said, "Pata nahi sir, yahan pe nobody gets above 770. Something wrong with the center." So I was like, good, at least that's a decent score. So I came out, and I was talking to somebody, and I realized I was speaking to somebody as if it was Thursday, when in fact the day was Friday. And then I sat down, I realized that I was genuinely tired. I was absolutely tired after taking that test. Yeah. And I realized that, okay, what happened was, none of my mocks, I took the topic in the morning slot, none of my mocks, I had actually taken the AW and the IR section. I had only taken quant and verbal. So I was only, so by the time I reached the last quarter of the verbal section in the normal, in the two mocks that I took at home, I was only testing for about, so my whole day's tiredness was there. But in terms of pure test taking, this thing, I was only testing for some time. Whereas on the actual test, I had actually done much more, one additional hour of testing. And I didn't take that into account while I got into practice. And if I was fresh, I would have got that. As opposed to this, when I took the test for the first time around, that time my work life was very, very simple. It was back in 2008. I came out of the test absolutely fresh. And I had a very simple work life, no, nothing. It was, as placid as it can be. My preparation was also during everything was fine. I got only a 750 then, but I came out and I felt that I could take another test. The reason I'm telling you this is this thing, another story. So me and Scrabbler slash Jay. So those of you know who that person is will know who I'm talking about. But otherwise, he's a colleague of mine who's got a 100 percentile 10 times on the CAT, right? And he's got a perfect 100 about 3 to 4 times. So back once in 2013, I think I was in IMS Chennai at that point of time, and I'd called him down to Chennai because I was conducting a lateral thinking quiz at IIT, for the IIT kids and somebody else. So I wanted him to, design that quiz and be a quiz master and everything. So he had come down to Chennai. We did that and everything. And what do we do when we get together and we want to have some fun? I said, because especially with him, what is the kind of fun that we have? So I said, okay, after some time, the next day or something, you're sitting and I'm like, okay, so what's the toughest CAT paper-based test? What was the toughest paper? So one of the years, I think 2007, 8 or 6, one of these 3 years or 5, one of these, he said, that is the toughest one. So I said, let's do one thing. Let's open the paper, right? Let's just try to solve using only the PDF without putting pen on paper. Let's see in 60 minutes, can we clear the cutoff or not? Let's just try, solving that. And we did that for 60 minutes, right? No pen on paper. And the moment that was over, it was a good exercise. We would have cleared the cutoff and everything. The moment that got over, I got up and I was like, why am I feeling tired? I need to go wash my face. And I'm just, genuinely feeling tired. But we didn't do anything since morning. And that's when he said, Tony, when you really use your brain, you'll feel tired. So what he meant was autopilot brain activities will not cost too much, but when you're genuinely using your brain also works on glucose. It is that same commodity that drives your body. That is what is required. So the moral of the story is that the starting point of any great performance in a test or preparation is the quantity and quality of your energy. Right? So whether it's mental energy or physical energy, it doesn't matter much in the sense that it's basically glucose only that's going out. So how energetic you feel, it has a clear this thing. So today, if I want to take a test with this thing that, I need an exceptionally good score, do much better than what I can, I know that this is maybe the most important thing. How fresh and how much energy do I have? Right? All of us right now, for right reasons or wrong reasons, are like completely in a rat's cage, right? We have maybe our parents around us, we have college happening, we have work happening, we have CAT prep happening, we have everything around us. And in this sort of a situation, how you manage your energy and the quality of and quantity of your energy, that maybe is the biggest thing in terms of the quality of your performance. Yeah. So what we are going to start with is this. So this is maybe something you might think that, okay, it's about concepts. So for example, you will find that you have taken, after a whole day's work, you are very determined to take the test. You are absolutely gung-ho about your preparation, and you go in and take a test late at night, maybe at say 9:45 or whatever amount of time, right? And then you see the score is not that great, and then you feel disappointed. Right? It is not that what you think, okay, last year I'd gotten a decent score. Why am I not getting even this much? The fact is, you've had a whole day. If you ask anybody, any working professional, they will say that the most important thing that they have to do in their work, they do it right in the beginning, in the first half. Say, suppose I have to do a blog post, on that particular day, I will not schedule any phone calls. I will not pick up any call, nothing in that first half when I'm working, because I know that I need fresh, absolutely fresh energy for that, and that is when I'll be doing. All the posts that I have done on my blog, I have actually done when that is the first thing that I've been doing in terms of my energy or whatever. Right. So how do we manage this energy and where do we go? In terms of, we'll discuss with managing energy first, then we'll go to stress, anxiety, and we'll go in that order. Managing your energy, the three biggest things, the most important things, you need to manage and also regulate the quality and quantity of energy to meet all of your goals. You have college and work, right? And acing the cat. So those who are in college, so maybe the few of you are lucky who don't have either college or work at this point, right? And acing the cat, which is one of the top 5 tests in the world. So if you need to ensure that you're doing all of this, college, work, as well as this, then it means that you have to think it being getting a copy, being the top 1 percentile on the cat, right, which is 2000 out of 2 lakh people, or being the top 5 percentile of the cat, is no less a task than, say, becoming a professional top 100 tennis player. It's absolutely, in terms of percentages, it is that tough a task. So hence you have to change your mindset to think like a sportsman and a professional sportsman, rather than just a student who's preparing and taking a test. Because once you make that switch, then you will see that how you approach everything else changes. Think about any sportsman. His whole life is geared towards that sport, and his family, everybody else is trying to gear to make that happen. Right? I know that kind of dedication from everybody else in your setup, your work, your boss might not happen. But in your head, if you think that this is the kind of an approach I need, that I need to regulate this, then whatever I'm going to talk will make sense. Otherwise, you will think, acha, there is some DILR strategy that I can give, or maybe that is the reason why I'm not doing that great. There are some concepts, there are some shortcuts, there is some technique. More than all of this technique and everything else, what really matters is this: when you get into those 3 hours, how much do you have to give, and how do you approach it? Now, firstly, not the quantity, but quality, but managing the quantity of your energy. What's the difference between, say, quantity and quality? Quantity is just like a fire hydrant. You just have insane amounts of energy. The quality of your energy is it one pointed, or is it all over the place, or is it completely distracted? Right? Is it like a kid with immense amount of energy who's running everywhere, or is it like a archer or a shooter whose sick, what you call concentration is one pointed? So, but that quality doesn't work unless you have a certain amount of quantity. The 3 pillars, if you ask me, are: first one is sleep, second one is diet, and third one is exercise. These are the 3 things for you to have a certain quantum of energy. And if you ask me what is the quantum of energy that you should have to give a very, very realistic estimate, you need to have the energy to take 2 tests back to back. Yeah, absolutely 2 tests back to back. You might say, sir, but why do I need to take 2 tests back to back? Is it really that necessary and everything else? I'll give you a simple this thing. Those who've taken this test last year, would know this, right? The center you will get will be typically, at least if you're lucky, it will be close to your place, but otherwise anywhere between half an hour to 1 hour from where you stay, right? The next part is you have to reach about 1.5 hours in advance. So that's another 1.5 hours. So before the test itself, you would have left home 2 hours before the test. Before the test starts, but at least 2 hours. Most people end up being there 1.5 hours before, right? At least 2 hours before the test. Now, with the beginning of verbal, you're already 2 hours away from home. After verbal and after DILR, by the time you reach quant, you have spent 4 hours, right? And on actual test day, everything will seem 20% tougher than it actually is. That same question, just like if you see that SimCat question later, you will find that it is easy at times, not everything, or what. But even on the CAT day, you would have found that those who taken it last year, things would have, on the test day, things will seem different. Take it from me, every test would seem 20% more difficult on test day, every question, than it actually is It's just the environment of that whole thing. But the first time that I took the GMAT, I remember there was a question that I was not getting. I was trying, it was a math question, and my legs started shaking. So it's not that I'm absolutely ice cold, because I wanted a great score on that, right? So it was kind of a cool down, and I knew that it's only one question. I say marked some answer and went ahead. I didn't want to jeopardize my time on it. And later, when I was returning in the auto, I just remembered that problem. It's a silly problem. This is the answer. But in test situation, it seemed tough. So that means that by the end of those two sections in quant, 4 hours since leaving home, and the end of two sections and you reach quant, you are at least 50% more tired than what you are normally when you're taking that test at home in a regular session where you've only spent 2 hours. So the most important thing is that you need that capability to at least sit for 5 hours. So 5 hours sitting is equivalent to, say, traveling and spending there an actual time. So 5 hours of sitting or 6 hours of sitting is the quantity of energy that you need to have. If you ask me to guarantee that you are going to ace the test on D-Day, that is the amount of energy that you need. Right? So I feel that is very, very important. Right? If I'm training for the test, say wanting a great score again, and say wanting to exceed what I can do normally, that is what I would do. That is what I would focus on. Right? So to get this quantity of energy, to generate that within your body and the system, because finally you have a certain finite amount of your whatever energy you have, that you have to create that. And they say that energy can neither be created nor be destroyed, it can only be transformed. So to do that transformation, it's not they say, actually it's a law of physics. Yeah. So to do that, how do you transform your energy? These are the three pillars. Now the first thing, if you ask me, any day that I do not have good relaxed sleep, I know that right from the morning, I'm not feeling great in the head. So I can do many things. So I can do anything involving, say, handling multiple phone calls, to sending out emails, to say asking queries on the blog and all of that. But if you ask me, do you want to say, take a test? I'd say no, I wouldn't want to take a test. I'm not really feeling in that. So quantity of sleep, or managing sleep, is most important. With two things, studies have clearly shown that both oversleeping as well as sleep deprivation both impair cognitive performance, in the sense, and purely cognitive performance. Cognitive performance, they'll give you tasks that require your mind to be alert. It need not be a test, but they'll see how quick your reflexes are. So oversleeping completely slows down reaction time. You might seem like, I had a great sleep, but if you oversleep, the brain is not operating in that fast twitch mode to react quickly. It slows down. You don't feel tired. You feel you have the energy and everything, but it's very slow to get off the blocks. Sleep deprivation, what it really impairs is your short-term memory and your concentration. You'll be buzzed, you'll be a bit on, but in terms of your brain being at the one-pointed, maybe the concentration is also possible, but memory goes for a toss. So if you're doing a DILR set and you have to remember conditions, because you cannot write down every single condition, you're actually solving, you're actually remembering the conditions. So when you're actually doing the conditions, you will realize you're not remembering. You have to go back again and again, and that slows you down, right? So both of these cases, so in terms of oversleeping, it slows down reaction time, and sleep deprivation, it impairs memory and concentration. So the first thing to determine is the optimum amount of sleep for you to wake up feeling fresh. Is it 6 hours? Is it 7 hours? Or is it 8 hours? Now you might tell me 9 hours, maybe 9 hours, maybe if you need 9 hours, fine. But you need to figure this out. That what is the time where you'll wake up absolutely fresh? I know that 6 hours and I'll wake up, I'll be fresh, but not optimal. But 7 hours is whenever I have 7 hours, I'm absolutely fresh. That is my personal time. Right? I wake up and I don't need a coffee. I don't need a coffee. I don't need anything else to feel fresh. But either 6 hours or 8 hours also for me, I feel that after 8 hours, I feel rested, right? But I would not be on immediately. But at 7 hours, I'm absolutely fresh immediately. If you ask me to take a test, I'll take a test. Right? So you guys need to figure out what is the time for you. You know that the only way to do is to embrace the worst thing, Naushad, yeah, Naushad says, because there is, a 3 hours, somehow in the afternoon. Yeah, naps are good. I also feel pretty, good after a nap. So that is also there in the afternoon. After a nap, you wake up, you do feel fresh. But I'm talking about generally the bigger sleep. Now, this can be at any point of time. I'm not saying it should be day and night. Each of us are living in completely, you know, technically weird circumstances. I think most of us are living in slightly unnatural circumstances, maybe, right? So where we're just staying put in one place. So you need to figure this out first. Second thing, well, what I can say, is that uh, more than oversleeping, the biggest challenge is the timing and the quality of our sleep. Right? Do you actually sleep every day at the same time, or does it go for a toss? And what is the quality of your sleep? You sleep for 8 hours, but do you really get good quality sleep that actually refreshes you? I doubt how many people are able to get it in this day and age, because we live in the most overstimulated environment ever in the history of mankind. Right? Today we can at will, right, watch and get distracted and get into a screen and get kicks, mental kicks at any point of time, right? Earlier you could watch the football match that was happening only on the weekend and then some highlights later, right? Now you can watch whatever you want as many number of times you want non-stop, right? And you're constantly, so it can be news that people are consuming, it can be your, this thing. So it is not normal. The time that we live in is not normal, because say 5 years back, you just could not watch every Tendulkar innings that you wanted at any point of time, no matter how many ever number of times, 5 to 10 years back, right? There was no access to it. Now you can watch it unlimited number of times whenever you feel like. So this amount of stimulation is not normal. Right? So the first thing to do is that, and that what this does is that the screen addiction that we're talking about, that blue light, everybody knows, is the most inconducive to sleep. Blue light from a screen actually does not allow you to go off to sleep. So I have done enough and more. So whatever I'm talking today, I have done, it's both from personal experience and also doing crazy amount of search on YouTube as well, right, to know about this and everything. Because I myself, I don't find it easy to sleep, because as I said, I'm super high energy, so my brain is overstimulated, not necessarily from what I'm from the phone, but it can be that because I read a lot, my brain is constantly ticking. So whatever I'm doing, I've done that research. So they say that that blue light and that screen from the blue light prevents a good night's sleep, not a restful, rejuvenating sleep. Right? So the first thing to do is, right, and when the personal time we get maybe is when we go off to sleep, and the first thing we do is then wanting to have what. So the first thing, with your phone, whatever relationship you have with your phone and that screen in your hand, you need to find out what your biggest digital consumption weaknesses are. What are the French fries or fried foods that you feed your mind? Right? For example, for me, I kind of maybe consciously made a choice not to watch it. But even if I have a weakness in terms of watching stuff, that would be, so for me it would be, say, watching football. I'm a big fan of, but then for me, my first big idol was Maradona. So watching Maradona videos like crazy is a big thing. Like Brian Lara is my favorite batsman, so watching his videos like crazy is a big addiction. So if you ask me what is my one or two weaknesses in terms of watching my favorite thing, it would be these two. But after that, other people and other things that you like also. I like Thierry Henry a lot, I like Zidane a lot, so all of this stuff is there. So I know these are the fries for my mind. Right? So but the social media, Insta or whatever other things, I'm not much on, and I don't get into that. So thankfully, those things are not there. But another thing for me is, say, the New York Times. I'm addicted to reading the New York Times. Right? So for me, maybe I realize that at night, even before I go to sleep, I want to read, was there any new articles that came out? Right? So that is also an addiction, because it's unhealthy, if you want. So for me, it is that. So you need to figure out what your weaknesses are, right? And maybe there is only one thing, especially when it comes to sports. Those guys have lived their life, right? And those guys have achieved whatever they need to achieve. Right? Be it Sachin or Messi or Ronaldo or whatever, they've achieved whatever they have to. Or maybe Messi, there is still the big achievement that is left. So none of that is going to change your life. watching that endlessly. So I told myself one day, and since then I haven't done it, that I am not going to watch any more Brian Lara videos. I watched everything. There is nothing on the internet that is there that I haven't watched, and that's it. It's over for me. It is the past. I told myself that not very long ago, maybe about 6 months to a year ago, and since then I haven't watched anything. Right. So it's a simple thing that I told myself. So, and it's not so that's something so maybe a small fact, tidbit. I don't know, some of you would know this or not. Obviously I'm a Federer fan also, so that's why I know this. So Federer looks so calm and so this thing right now. Federer also had anger management issues when he was young, and he also used to break rackets. Apparently at age 22, after he broke a racket and again got a violation, he just told himself that that's the last racket I'm breaking. That's it, I'm not breaking it anymore. Right? So it's not good for me. Right? So yeah, so everybody has that. So make a list of the things that you're most susceptible to, and then tell yourself that I'm done with this particular thing because there is no additional thing gained and lost. Most so once know your weakness. So in some cases you might say I'm done with this. Second thing is creating a ritual for your consumption. You guys are young, much younger than me, so you're and it takes age has nothing to do with it. Maybe let's keep that aside. So you have to create a ritual. What do I mean a ritual for consumption? Some of you might know I am on Instagram, but I install and uninstall it every time on the weekend. And I have it exactly for one day. I do a post, browse a bit, and I uninstall it. Every single time I uninstall it. Okay. So when I say create a ritual for consumption, do what you'd want to do in terms of watching this stuff or watching that stuff. First, know what your weaknesses are, and then create a specific time slot. And only during that time slot you will do this. You can watch anything you want, but at least start watching it only when you want it, and don't keep that at night. Maybe keep that at some other time. Because once you start, and keep an alarm, set a clear alarm to yourself. Okay, half an hour I'm going to watch this, and after that I'm out. So decide what that. So create that ritual. Delete apps from your phone if you can. Right? So if you can, if there are apps that are here, I would say that instead of saying, you wouldn't even know, you might get onto YouTube, you might set an alarm for half an hour. By the time you know one link has led to the other, you start on one thing and you end up completely going down another rabbit hole, and you don't know, after 1 hour you realize, how have I reached here? So that's what happens. So a better thing is delete the apps. Right? So if you say my YouTube watching is once a week, you might say that, sir, you're crazy. How can somebody even do once a week YouTube? But maybe you have to do that, and you install, uninstall, and do that. That's maybe the best thing that you can do. Trust me, that is the only thing that works. If it is there, you will use it. If you know that I'm only going to use it at this time, install, uninstall, install, uninstall every day also. That will save you more time and energy than anything else. Right? Your willpower is the reason I'm saying delete is your willpower is finite. Right? It is better not to have that in front of you than to have that in front of you and then try to resist it. Right? So your willpower is finite. Don't go off on that. Next thing, just about managing dinner, preferably before 10 p.m. If some of you have a completely different morning cycle, it's fine, right? Always observe how buzzed you are before dinner. So before you go to sleep, if you're super active, even then you won't get good sleep. So ensure that you're coming down from wherever you are. Yeah. Create a pre-sleep non-screen ritual. So at least half an hour before that, right? Completely you should have a no screen zone. Maybe the best thing to fall asleep is to pick up a book or the newspaper and start reading. You'll automatically fall asleep. Right? Ensure that you have everything that is necessary. All these things might seem irrelevant, but the fact is that they make us. So if you know that you need to drink water at night, keep that next to you. Right? If you ask me, this is the best thing you can do. Switch off your phone from 10 p.m. to 10 a.m. and inform everyone concerned, if you can do that. Right? So you work on your laptop, you have your laptop or machine on which you can prepare. Switch off your phone from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. to 10 a.m. That, if you ask me, is the best thing that you can do to have to have this. Right? Now, so hopefully those of you, I don't know if all of you are having great sleep, then absolutely, nothing, else. And you can have, all of that. They've actually, getting back the, yeah. So if you, those of you who have great sleep, it is fine. But those of you who do not have that, maybe if this helps, great. Right? But ensure you're doing that. I know newspapers are e-papers and everything else, but actually a couple of weeks back in Bombay, since last week, early last week, they've started delivering the newspaper. In case you have some books that you need to read, maybe order the hard copies of the books and start reading. Whether you read the book or not, if it helps you fall asleep, nothing like it. At least that part is there. It's great. Yeah. The next part that we're going to look at in terms of your diet. This is very short, nothing much. So so today. Before the session, because obviously now everybody is self-made, in the sense that you are your own maid. There is no maid, there is no cook. You have to do everything yourself. So that way, so the session was there, and somehow the cooking wasn't done on time. It was done on time, but I felt that I didn't want to eat right before the session because it will make me feel sluggish. So eat foods typically that leave you light and in quantities that don't slow you down. This is not just before the test, even throughout the day. You know exactly how some a food can make you feel. Right? You know how will you feel if you eat a fruit, and you know how you'll feel if you have something really cheesy and heavy or whatever. There is a clear difference, because your body then completely has to spend a lot of energy in terms of handling the digestion of the food. So have light food in quantities that do not slow you down. So that's something that makes a huge difference. At least I know very clearly the kind of food, that I know the effect on my body in terms. I know both the effects. I know how a fruit feels. I know how my favorite. Create a ritual for your cheat days. Again, ensure that, okay, I like this food, right? But I don't want to be eating this on a daily basis or whatever. You create a ritual for your cheat days. For example, my cheat meal or my favorite meal is, I love a biryani a lot, right? So biryani is my favorite this thing, and I can actually polish off, quite a bit of that. But I've created a ritual right now, in the sense that because we are at home at all times, you can cook whatever you want and you can order whatever you would want to. I've just ensured that I know that this is the day when I'm going to do this, right? So I know tomorrow is a Sunday, and I've created a ritual where on a Sunday I will exactly do a few things, right? The things that I like to do, right? The things that I like to drink and things I like to eat. So I will do that every Sunday, and only on that, and not maybe do that on other days. So create that, but on the rest of the days, because even if you have work, it makes sense to do something like that. Completely cut out the worst stuff, snack packets, as well as any sort of soft drinks, Coke, Pepsi, this, that. It is just pure sugar. This is the worst thing that you can do in terms of how your body feels. Sugar makes you more buzzed and hyper, right? So Red Bull might be the last thing that you need to drink, because you'll be all on. So it's like lots of energy, but not necessarily focused enough energy. And then later it goes up. As well as anything, any snack testing, anything out of a packet, salted, fried, absolutely cut that out. One of the things that I'd want you to do, say, I didn't want to speak about fitness or this thing in terms of, say, uh, weight and other things, but if you can, if you feel that this is, I need to roughly be around a particular body weight, say, what you call your height in centimeters minus 100, right? So height in centimeters minus 100, somewhere plus or minus that range. If you're there, if you can do that, do that. It can help. It can definitely help in terms of if you are fit, physically fit. I can come to that later as to why that is, but yeah, if you can do that, especially if some of you have a problem with eating, overeating, and then you eat, and after that you don't feel like, you don't feel to be in the mood for preparation at all, right? So, and you feel that I need to eat that much. This is something that I've tried. If you want to control your diet and to see that you're always light, try intermittent fasting for 4 weeks. I've tried it and it's absolutely doable and it's great. So it's, if you want to reach a particular optimum, not crazy, I'm not talking about, say, completely getting into this percentage body fat and all of that nonsense. But if you can feel that can lose a bit to feel more fit, then you can try this. It is nothing but, say, between the first meal of the day and the previous day's last meal, what sort of a gap should you have? You can start with a 13-hour gap in week one. You can start, then you can move to a 14-hour gap. So 13-hour gap means that if you've eaten at 9, next day you eat your breakfast at 10. It's not very tough to do. And then you can move that to 14 hours, 11, 15, and 16. What I found about this by practicing this myself is that, one, your body is light for longer durations of time. And the second thing I found is that you can actually do with much lesser. You need lesser food than you actually, you can get used to. So all the casual eating, lazy eating, I think I'm hungry, so let me eat something, where you're not really hungry. You'll actually end up knowing what true hunger is. That my body is really hungry. It's not just some random signal because it's 12 o'clock or whatever. This is optional only if some of you feel that you want to try out, you want to be slightly fitter, in terms of the weight and get closer to the idealist thing. It's that, right? And just, this is unwanted advice maybe, but only look at that centimeters minus 100, or other things, BMI, this, that, and are not necessarily very accurate. Right? So this is very, very important in terms of the kind of food you feel, in terms of how do you feel inside, right? And you know exactly what I'm talking about, how you feel after you eat something. Right? Now, this, I put it as part of diet. So in case some of you are, this is something that last year students have also followed from the blog. So because I'm no longer taking this, but because say I had a lot of sleep issues, and hence because I used to not sleep well, I used to wake up feeling groggy. Brahmi tablets, if you feel that you want to feel fresh, right, it'll take some time before you manage to feel another this thing. Brahmi tablets, these are herbal tablets. These are absolutely safe. It's not any other form of medication or whatever. So these are actually quite good for you to feel alert. So I made it a point to take it every day in the morning. It made me feel fairly alert, and it is not a bad thing to do. So if you're feeling groggy, and so there are various brands, Organic India is a decent brand. You can try that out, right? So I never used to mention the brand also before, because I'm not like some random influencer person. But then people start asking, there's so many different types, which one should I use? Right? So this definitely improves alertness. If you're somebody with poor sleep and wake up groggily, then taking one of these every day in the morning is not a bad idea. Students have also, last year done this. So I personally tried this, so it has done that, and it's very good. It's also good for immunity and stuff. This is maybe absolutely important, right? People think that a test is a thing about the mind. It's only purely the mind, and what does fitness have anything to do with it? But it's absolutely an exercise. Absolutely improves our memory and cognitive performance. The worst thing that you can do is, say, if you're sitting for long amounts of time, you will clearly see that after a point your cognitive performance goes down. So because what exercise does is it provides oxygen to your brain. So that's what it provides. So this is as recent as, say, an article, say, just a few weeks back only. So 2 days back on NYT, there was another article saying that exercise improves both memory and cognitive performance. So the two things that you should definitely do, everybody should try to do, is trying to do some amount of pranayama with a breathing exercises, right? And one out of cardio or some amount of asana. So pranayama or breathing exercises, you just go and you Google, say, on YouTube, you just check, say, pranayama and breathing exercises. You'll get a simple set that you can do, and they'll demonstrate that. So a 20-minute session of that's the best way to actually increase your energy, right? Essentially, it's oxygen, right? And getting in fresh oxygen into the system, that will really help. Right? And doing one out of, say, cardio and asanas will definitely help. The bare minimum you can do, if you cannot do anything else, if you can even do a 20 to 30-minute run or a jog, it will really help. Right? It will absolutely help if you can do a 20 to 30-minute run or a jog. That's the bare minimum you can do. The best you can do, if your life and everything around it and the circumstances you are in can support it, is, say, doing a 1 hour of a yoga session every day. There are enough and more people online, this, that. It's because yoga combines breathing as well. Right? If you ask, sir, is it important? Is all of this important? I will add all of that at the end. I don't want to put all of that at the beginning as to why is it important or not. Okay? The best you can do, if you ask me, nothing at all, at least do the 20 minutes of breathing exercise, because that is where you're pumping oxygen into your body. And that is nothing but a way of increasing your energy. Or rather, what do you work on? You work on the number of breaths only, right? So that is when you're short of energy, when your energy runs out, what happens? So that's what happens. Your breath becomes shallow. So this is something that you should definitely try. So As I said, bare minimum. Another thing, don't get into too strenuous exercise at this point of time. If you do crazy amount of weight training or anything of that sort, at this time, I would rather that you conserve that energy for prep and move into a very light cardio or run or a jog sort of a this thing. Don't stress yourself or waste too much of your energy and workout as well. Now, the most important thing is, these are the various ways of creating energy. So, as I said, pranayama is a very, very important way of creating energy in terms of, say, it's like you have that system inside you and you're pumping it and you're ensuring that that's working fine. Like sleep and diet and all of this. But managing your energy is very important because you have only a finite amount of energy. You have a certain amount of money to spend in a month, right? There's a certain amount of money that you can spend in a month. There's maybe a certain amount of water sometimes that you have only to spend in a month. If I tell you that you have only 2 buckets of water to spend in a day for everything that you would do, then how would you spend that water that you have? Or if I tell you that you have to manage the next month only on this much money, how would you spend? And how do you spend if you feel you have unlimited? When you have unlimited, you end up spending unlimited this thing. But understand that the energy that you have to spend during the day is very, very finite. And you need to allocate it to the people around you, work, test preparation, test taking, right? These are all the things which you need to allocate your this thing to. You need to be very aware of the way you're spending it, because every single interaction can be an energy sink. You do not know it, but every single thing will actually sap energy out of you. As I said, if you know you have limited water, you will be very, very careful as to how much you're using, right? Similarly, if you're aware of your energy, when you're spending it during the day, you have, say, 2000 kilocalories of energy, or you have so much this thing. Once you become aware, then you're aware, you're avoiding wastage, right? So in your mind, operate at battery saving level. There is a phone that operates at battery saving level. Similarly, you'd have to operate at a battery saving level. And one of the big things, you do not realize it, but in terms of an energy sink, is the amount that we speak. Right? If we speak a lot, that's say at home, at anywhere, at work, or with people at work also, speech is actually a big energy sink, more than you actually realize it is. Right? So be very conscious of how you are spending that. And you'd have to structure your prep. Find ways to structure your prep around your optimal energy levels. Now, this is something that each one of you has to figure as to what is my optimal energy level. So if you feel that there is no way I can do a morning this thing, or so you need to figure. So suppose it can be a simple thing that before you start your prep and after your work, you're actually consciously ensuring that you don't have your phone or anything else for a while. And maybe you do those breathing exercises at least, so you're not maybe doing it fresh first time in the morning, but you're not just rushing from one thing to the other. You finished work, now I'm desperate to prep, I quickly eat something and you go and prep, right? Because there is still not a balance there. So what I'm trying to get at is, be aware of the way you're spending your energy, right? And if you say want to start your prep and you want, after doing something else for a while, ensure that you're giving yourself that break, gathering yourself, and you're taking up that once you do that. So this is that entire energy bit, because I feel this ought to do with your preparation. The quality of energy that you take to your prime you're preparing, as well as the quality of energy that you take in terms of test taking, has a huge impact. So ensure that you're doing all of these things right in terms of managing your energy. And the next thing we get to is how to handle, say, stress and anxiety as such. So if we get to stress and anxiety per se, what happens when you're stressed? For short durations requiring absolutely immediate response, stress is very, very good. Because if you don't get stressed, you don't act. So that's why what happens over a short duration is heart pounds faster, muscles tighten, blood pressure rises, breath quickens, your senses become sharper. So in the short run, if there is stress, you actually become super alert and you get things done. Right? So because stress is also something that is a natural thing that the body triggers. So say there is something happening which requires your urgent attention, and your entire body should get focused towards that for you to act. Say some danger is there, you need to run at your maximum. That is what stress is for. It's the body's reaction to a special situation. These changes increase your strength and stamina, speed up your reaction time, enhance your focus, and prepare you to fight or flee from danger. So it does not mean that one should always be in the stress-free Baba state where one is no. But in a particular emergency, you need these things. So because it does that. But over a period of time, chronic stress can destroy your body, your mind, and it goes without saying it in relationships as well. Right? So the three big conflicts through which stress comes about, if you ask me, is first is all the externals that we're looking at, you versus your family. That can be a huge cause of stress. Sometimes I feel that the only job of parents to do is create problems for you. I'm not sure that I'm not saying that's true of all parents, but parents have their way of creating their own stress around you. Right? So those of you who are repeating, those of you who are staying at home all the time with your parents, it can mean that that is a pretty stressful thing. Second thing is you versus your work that you have, right? So all of you are working professionals. Work itself can be a cause of stress. And the third thing that comes in is you versus your test, which is nothing but you versus your mind, right? So because all of these stresses create anxiety and sap your energy. So if you need, because I know that for us right now, everything is combined into one place. Your work, your home, your test taking, your preparation, your college, everything is in one place. So obviously you might or might not know it. Maybe you would realize, last year I was getting a much better score. And when I'm taking the mock, why is my score not that great this year? Because this year is not like last year given the environment and everything else. So if you know this, so how do you manage each of these? And I know it might seem like it. So they say that you cannot choose your parents. That's absolutely, you know that you cannot choose your parents. So treat them as body minds with their own problems, right? So once we say that, okay, they are separate, they're individuals and they have their own set of problems, and you don't have expectations that why are they doing this? Treat them as people with their own issues, right? So they have their own issues and which they're doing. Except that you have to manage them. Right? You have to manage. They're not going to change. You're not going to get a perfect situation from them in terms of the behavior if you have a problem. Except that it will take management. Be aware of the way things can spiral and do not contribute to that spiral, because all of us are staying constantly with our parents. We know that things for a fact that usually this situation, this conversation leads here and it will go to a particular part which is not right. So do not contribute to that spiral. So if you know this is a problem, be aware of that. You have to live your life with or without their permission. Be ready to own up to your mistakes. So don't really look for validation to say that they should completely support each and everything that you're doing. Some of you might have quit your job to prepare for the CAT. Right? Your parents might not be completely supportive of that. Right? But don't expect that support or anything else. Know that you are living in your terms. Some of you might have left a good college last year to say, do another this thing. Your parents might or might not be in support of that as well. Right? So you have to live with or without their permission. You have to do what's right for you and be ready to own up to whatever it is. Most importantly, even here, moderating your speech, choosing words carefully can be the biggest tool to deal with any sort of external stress. External stress is what is created by people other than you. Somebody else is creating that. And it's always helps to watch your tongue, right? And the spoken word is your master. The unspoken word is your slave. That is that's a quotation that I read somewhere, and it made a lot of sense. That's how things are. Second thing, this is also one thing. You cannot choose your boss. Well, you can choose your boss over a longer term. So recently, my friend was interviewing with some firm, and he was at a senior level you can figure out who you're reporting to. You can ask who you'll be reporting to, and then you can actually find out all other people through your network who work with this firm, and you can actually figure out. So this, say, after some years of say 5 to 10 years of working, if you're reporting to after an MBA, you can actually figure out who is this, who am I reporting to, and what is this person like to work with. So as of now you cannot choose your boss, but over a longer period you can in effect choose them. Deal with whatever happens at work without stressing. So I know that people can be piling work at you and whatever it is. Whatever happens, you do not waste extra mental energy feeling bad or good about it. Whatever happens, just ensure that okay, you are not operating at an emotional level or a mental level where you're spending that energy. Right? accept that you have to attend that meeting. People are saying that timings have gone for a toss. People organize meetings at every day. There is no Saturday, Sunday anymore and everything. Accept that, right? Do not fight it and do not waste energy in fighting. Maybe use that, meeting. If say you don't need to completely say contribute a lot of that during that meeting, instead of say using your phone and doing something else on that, during that time, you might as well do some deep breathing and stock up on some energy during that. Maybe that's a much better way to deal with it. Be aware of colleagues who can wind you up and sidestep them if possible. Just like people at home can be a problem, people at work can also be a problem. So if you know that some colleagues are constantly a bit of this thing, ensure that is also. Do not attribute the worst intentions to others based on your assumptions. Yeah. So usually at work and everything else, one of the big causes of stress is that we attribute the worst intention to others. Right? Okay, this might be, this is what that person is thinking. This is why this person has done that, this, that, everything. Don't do that. Stop making those assumptions. Your life will be easier. Right? Give yourself fully to the task at hand. Suppose you have to do something. Right? All of us have to do housework right now, right? So I also have to do the dishes. I also have to take part of cooking. One thing is fighting that. The second thing is, this is, so I know that any time, say from 8:30, from 8 to this thing, is the time for housework, and I give myself completely up to that to do that work. I don't fight it, right? Because your own mind can create fiction. If you're not liking to doing something, and so, because it has to be done, right? But you don't like doing it. When you do that, you're fighting that. That again saps energy. If you can serve even 100 calories of energy during that time before you go prepare later at night, through by not fighting it, you will save that. Now we come to the test wala part, right? You versus the test, and you versus how you test. So test and mind are the same thing. The biggest cause of test stress is thinking about outcomes and consequences of suboptimal outcomes. What will happen if I do not get it this year? Right? I'm taking it for the first time. Now I'm still in my college. Now there are no jobs outside. If this is the pandemic situation, what will happen if I do not get? Bulk of the time with respect to tests, the stress always happens because people think of the outcomes and what will happen. You're constantly thinking what will happen if this doesn't, what if the result goes bad, right? So this is not just you, it's a lot of people. The stress comes from there. There's a student long time back, so she was about say 27 years old. She was taking the GMAT, and I realized that she was very, very hyper as a person. And I felt that this sort of hyper and stressed out this thing in a test situation, when she goes into the test day, if outside of test it's like this, on test day it will be absolutely a bloodbath. I was absolutely clear about that particular thing. And I told her that, see, this amount of stress taking won't actually help. So she was in sales and 27 years old, worked quite a bit. So she was like, sir, you can tell me that, don't take stress. I'm 27 years old and I've been working in sales for this amount of time. If I don't crack GMAT, if I don't go abroad, my parents will get me married off and my life is going to be absolute bullshit, the worst nightmare that I can imagine. Right? So that was her entire this thing. If test does not happen, all of these things don't happen. Right? So it's very easy for you, sir, to say don't take stress, but obviously because you don't have this thing, so all I, told her was, see, when you take that test, that question doesn't know any of this about your life. Question doesn't care whether your parents want to get married, you to get married if you don't. Question has nothing to do with any of this in your life. Question is just saying, okay, A takes, is going at so much speed and reaching B at this point of time, and what happens? Question has nothing to do with all of this. So obviously, you take all of this and sit in front of that test. All of this is going to come between you and the test. So the first thing is, stop thinking about suboptimal outcomes and consequences that. Right? You cannot control the outcome. You can only control the process, right? So think about the plans you have to execute during the week, the test, and the section itself. So we'll go to each one of these. So all you can think of is, What are my processes and what do I need to do? So when I said I also felt some stress before taking that test for the second time, was that the second time when I was taking the GMAT, the company was paying for it, right? So as I was, say, getting ready in that morning and I was going, I was thinking, what if I don't get 750 this time? Last time I got 750. What if I don't get 750 this time? Right? People might be, everybody in the company will know. Obviously, the company is paying. They'll ask me, and they might say that, okay, this guy's what you call, he's gotten old now. Say 10 years back he got a score, but now he knows he's no longer as good. He will not get a score. These are the thoughts that exactly came to my mind also. Right? Because even it's not as if anybody who says they have no tension at all, they're absolutely chill, that means they don't want it. They don't actually, it doesn't matter to them whether that test happens or not, right? So if you was my best friend, for example, was always like that. It didn't matter because it's like he was at that point of time, he didn't want anything. You take this. I asked him, how are you so cool? How do you just walk in and get these scores in the test? So this is something he told me then. He said, see, Tony, you want to get into IIM Ahmedabad and you want to do well. I don't give a damn. That's why I don't feel anything. So when I go to take that test, it's just that question and me, and nothing is there between us. Whereas you want, and that is why you're feeling that. That was a very good thing. So not necessarily, not that every. So you cannot not want, right? You either want something or you don't want something, right? It's just like you like somebody, you can't pretend as if you don't like somebody and act as if you don't give a damn. It will come out eventually. So I also was feeling that when I was getting ready for the test and I was driving. So my immediate thing was, I did exactly what I told my students. Don't think about the outcome. What are the processes that I usually teach my students to do? Okay, this is the process for CR question. This is the process for sentence correction. This is the process for RC. This is the process for data sufficiency. So I talked myself through the processes that I'll execute. Because if I do the processes correctly, then the outcome has to be correct. There is no way that I will do the right things in terms of the process and the outcome becomes completely different, because all tests function in a particular way. So there is no point in me thinking about the outcome. I'll rather think about and you see, every sportsman says this. Dhoni speaks a lot about process, right? That you just have to follow the process, and you just follow the process, and then the outcome has to happen. So whenever your mind starts thinking about all of this, okay, now what do I do about, what if I don't get through? What if CAT goal changes? See, somebody will ask me, sir, will CAT happen? Will aspirants change? Will the CAT get postponed? Will the number of people take CATing change? None. That is, no, it's none of it is in my hands. I do not know. And it does not change anything because it's still a percentile, right? In terms of, yeah. And the good people who are so serious, might say, so hence focus on. So this might seem like the oldest and the most basic thing, ki karam karo, fal ki chinta mat karo, all Mahabharata and stuff. But I'm telling you, what is that process, or what is that you have to think of when all of these things come to your mind? What is my plan for this week? What do I need to work for this week? What do I need to prep? What is the test? So think about the plans you execute during the week. If you're thinking, so I'll come to the test in the section later. Right? So just think about your plans. That's what exactly I told myself. If I do everything I tell my student, I'll be fine. Whenever I deviate from that. So if you remember when I said my energy level dropped, how did I realize my energy level had dropped? Because I was solving that question on gut feel and not on process. I solve all questions on process and not on gut feel and intuition and whatever. Because nothing of that sort works. It's a process, that works. Exactly what I keep talking about cricket. Most of the time, those who've read my blogs would know. It is that foot to the pitch of the ball, elbow high, head still, making contact. That's a process. The cover drive to the fence happens because all of these processes get followed. They don't go follow because the guy is really passionate and wants to work hard, right? There are always examples. So ABD, this, that, everything. There are always people who don't have technique. But ABD has absolutely great technique in terms of, say, his eye for the ball, and he's automatically operating on autopilot because he knows the processes in a T20 format. He knows it perfectly, right? And ABD also has great cricket. In T20 format, he is there. He's going down onto this thing. They say that because he played rugby earlier, he has such strong thighs that he can actually go down and lift that ball. Right? Now, so concentration is a separate thing. We'll deal with that later. So think of the plans that you need to execute. Next big thing. A great score. So when you say this is about the mind, so whenever your brain is thinking what will happen in December, what will happen in November, and the cat happens, think about your plans. A great test score is primarily a function of this one, the quality and quantity of energy at the time of prep and testing. So during the time of your preparation as well as testing, the quality of your selection of sets and questions. So if you ask me if you think it's just about concepts and your ability, absolutely not. You will realize that how you selecting the right questions is more important than anything else. Third thing, the quality of your solving technique. How good is your technique of solving, right? Do you miss information? Do you do miscalculation? Do you do misreading? Is that how important the technique is? Only much later does this whole thing of say, concepts and application can be there, but if everybody who knows a maths formula can go and get into an I am Ahmedabad, it doesn't work like that, right? Knowing the concept is one thing, but these are very important in terms of test. If you ask me, concepts and application, roughly around 40% of what is required. But what is more required is this: how much can you last for those 3 hours? You select the right questions to solve, and when you select those questions to solve, can you know how good is your technique? So if your processes on each of the above are right, then the outcome is right. I was talking about don't think of outcome, think of process. So if your processes on each of this, in terms of how you manage your energy, you have that energy at each point of time, you have the quality of that selection of sets is there, and the quality of your solving technique is good, this will be right. So over the next, I am and I'll always again will be doing also detailed posts on question and set selection for each section. So on my blog, thecatwriter.com, the latest post that is there, I've taken an entire section of a quant and the SimCat, and I've demonstrated how to select the questions, and the questions I've selected, I've also given solutions for some of them, not all. But I've clearly demonstrated that thought process, right? So I will be doing this not just for quant. So quant, I have one more thing coming up for speed. I will be doing this for every single section. So I'll be doing the question and set selection also. All of this will happen in the next few days, because when somebody asked me, and and why, just on the basis on the this thing of question and set selection, do you know that on DILR, right, if you get 36 marks in 2017, 18, and 19, if you got a score of 36, which is 3 sets right, you would have gotten a 95 percentile easily. If you got a score of 48 and somewhere 48 to 50, a 99 was guaranteed at somewhere around 50. So in the previous 2 years, it was 44 and 48. Last year, it was slightly higher. And if you go anywhere close to 60, you are at a 99.5, or even say much higher than that, much higher than that. So essentially, what am I saying? 3 sets out of 8, if you do, you are getting a 95. And if you have 95 in all 3, you are set. If you do 4 sets, you have a 99. 4 sets. That means out of 8, your job is to only choose the 4 easiest ones and do. That is why selection becomes so much more. So somebody asked me, sir, are you going to deal with the stress of DILR? The stress of DILR happens because you don't have a process for DILR. The stress is because there is no process, and you're just flapping your hands blindly at every single set, scratching around for 10 minutes, not happening. Next set, 10 minutes, not happening. 10 minutes, 20 minutes, maybe it happens. Then you go to the next. The lack of strategy or lack of plan of set selection is what creates the stress. The stress is an outcome, right, because of lack of it. So I will be doing each of this. So quant, for example, there's a student who commented on the blog saying, sir, I used to get 20 before this on quant because I just used to solve every question for some time and start from start to end. Now I've started consciously selecting questions and doing that now, later, never approach in terms of, so after reading the question. And she said she's clearly moved from 20 to 40 just by doing this, not from learning anything new. Right? So I'll be doing these, right, session. Next thing, there is a specific technique for specific areas, RC and DILR specifically. There is a technique to solve an RC and everything. So I'll be doing, so the blog posts will be there detailed on all of these. If you want to read that beforehand, you can go to thecatwriter.com. You will see CAT strat, VAL, VR, verbal strat, DILR strat and quant strat. You will have everything already, there. I'll be doing SimCAT feedback for verbal also. So I'll be doing the SimCAT feedback for Sim 6, Sim 9, Sim 12, and Sim 15. I'll be doing the verbal ability feedback, VRC feedback that is there. So even through that, your technique will get better, right? And I will also be doing webinars as well on all of the above using last year's CAT paper. Right? So in the next 1 month itself, you can know that when I'm talking about the processes to follow and don't think about outcome, you can learn all the processes already from the blog. And I will be doing all of these as well. So don't worry about the process. So you'll get that process. Yeah. Now, so before each practice session, so I'm assuming that you go ahead, you read the test quant blog to how to select a question. So the latest blog post that is there. You read the DILR blogs on how to actually select the right sets. You read the VRC, this thing. Now, any of this, it is not going to happen immediately that in the next test itself, you're going to crack it. It is not going to happen that in one section of this thing, because it's like saying you figuring out how many runs are good on this particular pitch, right? In terms of say how to make enough and more this. So it will take some time to develop that judgment to play according to the pitch and to the right person. If that was to happen, say a post pada immediately, maybe it's very easy in quant maybe, but for DILR it is going to take, even on quant it's not that easy, but still definitely doable. Quant and VRC, DILR it will take some time because there are only 8 sets and reading is a bit of an issue. So it will take some time. So once you have read all of this, before each practice session and before each test, know what you want to achieve from that session or test. Right? Those of you who've read that how to improve your core DILR strength, the core strength on DILR, I've put up some things of the things you need to do. Okay, I want to solve this particular DILR set that I'm doing with minimum writing. I'm not going to blindly start copying every single piece of information from the start till that end. That is my usual habit. But my goal in this practice session is to read that properly, right? So developing that right habits, as I said, completely copying everything from there, not doing that, or saying that, okay, I usually write all the steps in quant. Can I solve this practice session by say writing half that I usually write? So tell yourself before that practice session and that test what you want. Right? I scored a 90 last time. This time I want a score of 120 and I'm looking at increasing 10 marks in each section. Right? So that is my goal. So know that and talk yourself to what you are going to do to achieve those targets, right? So to say reduce my solving time, my say writing 10 steps, I'm going to solve all of these things. I'm going to do mentally. Only if I come to such a calculation I'm going to write, right? And say, okay, to achieve to increase my quant score by 20 more, I'm going to, so before that session, before that test, talk yourself, tell yours, because you do not realize that your by default methods, right? Whatever you do, unless you talk yourself through that, you might end up and go and do what you normally do, irrespective of this session, irrespective of how much you read. A lot of people go back, and the moment the test starts, people forget everything and they start doing yeah, right? They immediately start what you call forget everything, and your by default method is very, very good. There's a blog that's on ESPN Cricket Info. I read a post by Martin Crowe, who said that he had a lot of anxiety about say performing well, whether he was good enough. He used to take a lot of stress. So every single ball, he used to actually talk to himself. Head straight, head still, come on and do. He used to actually talk himself to doing well. So you cannot do necessarily for every single question. It might be, yeah, but if you talk to yourself of what you need to execute, so then maybe after 3 or 4 tests, it will become habitual. If you just read this and attend this session, read the blog once, forget everything about it, and go back to doing what you normally do in a test, nothing is going to happen. Yeah. And tell yourself before each test, what do I want to improve in my solving, right? How do I want to get better at solving? So talk to yourself as to what you'd want to achieve, right? If your processes on each of the above are right, the outcome will be right. You don't need to worry about it at all. If you do all of this correctly, that will immediately happen. Right? Now, so which is why I didn't want to talk about say processes and not say that I'll cover them. All of the techniques, everything is actually there already with say, on the blog. You can go to verbal strat, DILR strat, quant strat, you'll find that. Okay. Now, passion trumps process only on a sports field and not a test. What do I mean by this thing? So when Dhoni says process, Dhoni, I'm talking process. On a sports field, even if you don't have process on a given day, a crazy amount of passion, because sports is based on energy and that momentum and everything that people feel on a field. Say 15 people absolutely crazily passionate and pumped up, right, can completely subdue the process oriented team. In the World Cup as well, why do we, on the odd day, why is it that Pakistan is the team that can surprise everyone on the odd day? Why does that happen? That is because on some days they come out with a level of passion that no process can match. So while Dhoni is right in say following process, on a physical, on a sports field, crazy amount of passion and crazy amount of this thing will absolutely trump process on a, but that's a sports field. So on a test situation, in a test, you know that it's not physical energy. You might be as pumped up. In fact, if you're very pumped up before a test, pumped up and saying that, come on, I'm going to this, it might be counterproductive because that mental energy will actually create a lot of disturbance. So while this passive on a test situation, always process and not getting way too pumped up and in you versus your mind, right? So when talk about sir, all of this is fine, but normally you are somebody who takes stress, right? Whether you like it or not, you tend to take stress, not stress. Now, what happens when you get stressed at all points of time? Whenever we get stressed, the biggest thing is that you start. What does everybody say? Take deep breaths. Take deep breaths. Your breath goes shallow, right? So there is a direct relationship between the breath and your stress, right? So which is why they say breathe and calm your mind down, right? That's why they ask to do. So if you are somebody who you cannot control your thoughts, you get stress, all of that. How do you actually reach that space where you have more control over your mind? And you're able to say put more thought into it. You feel that sir, I need, all of this is fine, all of this is say test taking strategy and behavior. If you ask me that controlling this horse called the mind, the best thing that you can do is making breathing exercises a part of your process, right? It is not a psychological switch. You do proper breathing exercises every single day. It's not easy. After a point of time, and if you start only focusing on your breath, you will see that the quality will improve. Absolutely. And there is absolutely no doubt in my mind because I'm talking from years of practice and years of not practicing. Years of not practicing under stress and years of practicing. I know that this is the best thing you can do. Right? In terms of physical energy, I was talking about, my mother through me discovered, say, yoga about 10 years back. She's close to 68, 69 years old. Right? And she has a few illnesses as well. Since she started yoga 10 years back, her energy levels have gone through the roof. Right? There's a two-floored house. She does all the cleaning, all the cooking, everything. She's close to 68, 70. She doesn't feel tired at all. She won't miss her breathing exercises as well as yoga. Even for a single thing, for nothing in the world will she miss it. Right? We had gone on a Vietnam trip, just me, my brothers, and my mother. And even there, right, because we were walking for a long time and we were taking a lot of this thing, she knew that she needs to keep up. She was doing her breathing exercises. Right? So, both for the body in terms of energy as well as controlling the mind, this is a very important thing. There are some books in just sometimes some people need something more. I'll talk about which books. So if every day morning or whenever you wake up, if you feel that for you to get more control over your thoughts and stress less out, you can make pranayama a part of the process or breathing techniques, and say follow it up with a chapter of a book that will help you harness your, what books they are, I'll tell you that. So if you can do that, that will really help, right? For stress specifically in terms of say reducing whatever this thing, ashwagandha is an other herbal this thing that actually helps down, because most of these are actually physical processes, right? Because stress is a physiological this thing, because we cannot say where the mind end and ends and where does the body begin. There is no actually clear difference. And so I would say that this is again something that you can try if you want, say, a slightly less hyperactive mind, and you want to say what, so it's actually not for hyperactivity, but actually for, say, reducing the stress levels. That is something that you can try. But this is something you should do. Yeah. Now, the books to get you interested in all of this. If all of these seem that what is all of this shit? Why is he talking about breathing, this, that, all of that? Why not just tell me about how to crack the cat or whatever? If you feel that, if you want to get some interest in that, a couple of things, books to get you, all of this is optional. If you don't feel like doing it, why you might do it, I might tell you later. So the books to get you interested: Autobiography of a Yogi. This is a book which is completely about all the magic tricks that all the great Indian yogis have done. So I don't know how much of it is real and I don't know how much of it that in its but it seems pretty exhilarating that okay, all of these skills are possible within the human mind and human body. So that is an interest. That's the first book I read. This book called Four Agreements is optional, right? So this is again a book. So this is a book. I'll tell you later as to why it is optional and who's why the star there. If you like these things and you are interested, these are the two books that I still do on a very regular basis, because the chapterization is such that I do a breathing exercise and I read this, a chapter of this book. So for me, it's that one ritual that creates focus. It's just a ritual that creates focus, nothing else. Right? It tells me that I am in control. I'm ready to manage work, manage this, manage that. It just gives me that this. And these are very, very heavy. These books might be a bit heavy, right? So definitely might be a bit heavy. Not easy to read. Some of you might say, sir, these books have created more doubts than this thing. Don't get too freaked out by that. Each book might take 3, 4, 5 readings. So don't do immediately one after the other. Read one for say 4, 5, 6, 7 times. I think I've read the first one for years. I read every chapter before figuring out or whatever. Before say currently the book I read is the second book, but it will take some time. This is the order that I would say you can do for those who are interested. Right? If you inculcate these practices, you start doing the breathing exercises, you start reading this, you will start observing the processes of how your body is feeling and how your mind is feeling. You will be the master and you won't be the slave who's running after your body and after your mind. Right? Sometimes you see people taking the dog for a walk, you see it's the person walking the dog or is the dog walking the person. It's like that. Right? Do not try to control, just try to observe what's happening. Don't be, you have to be both the mother watching and the child playing. So your mind is going off on a tangent, your body, I want to eat this, I want to eat that. You are both the child who's playing and the mother who's watching. If the child is going to, put the hand, get hurt or fall off somewhere or whatever. So you'd have to play that role in terms of your own thing. Do not be hard on yourself during this whole point. So a lot of times we make, say, plans and you don't hit that plan and then you curse yourself. You're, very hard. Do not hard on yourself. And say when you get diverted, just amusement maybe, being amused at my mind is solid. And I thought of all of this, but I started this and I finally went off on some other trip. Just amusement to bring the mind back or say get back from the distraction. Once you start these practices, you start observing. And once you start observing, don't start hitting yourself. You will that, acha, theek hai, fir bhag gaya. Because this is a monkey that you have and it will just keep on. It is observing it to get it back. Now, if I could only suggest 5 things, say, sir, this is way too much. If I could only suggest 5 things. The first thing, just to summarize, is be aware of, control and harness your sleep. To do this. Second thing, be aware of, control and harness your diet. Right? The harness means, that. Third one, be aware of and control and harness your body, which is your exercise and energy levels through exercise and all of that. This fourth one, your breath, which is pranayama and doing all of that. So your, when I'm talking about sleep, diet, exercise, breath, and the last one, be aware of and control, harness your speech. If you have control over your mouth, there are enough and more things that automatically become easy. Right? You might ask me this. Do the guys scoring, sir, 200, above 200 do all of this? You're saying so many things to the guys scoring 200. So if you say, if you remember the story that I told you right in the beginning, that despite all of that, I went and got a 770 on the GMAT, right? But if I want an 800, I will do all of this. So the level of the challenge and your level that determines whether you need to do all of this or not, right? So if say for somebody, so say that is completely what determines everything, right? If you are at a level much higher than the test, then you don't need to do any of this, none of this. So my friend Scrabbler, for example, might not be doing a single thing out of any of this. None of this is necessary for him to get 100 percentile again this year, for him, because at his level the test is not the challenge. But tomorrow he's taking a different test, not this test, say a different, say same test, CAT only, right? Maybe slightly higher difficulty level than say the current math, this thing. And the people he's competing against are only the IITians, the MIT guys, the Stanford guys. I am sure that he will ensure that he's well rested, that he'll ensure that his diet is good, that he's not tempted, because he's also very much aware of all of this. Not that he's not aware, right? So if he's put into a situation where he has to compete and it becomes a challenge for him, then he will do it, right? So among the guys who are, and even at the level, so guy who's doing 200 easily, if he can do all of this, then maybe 240 and 100 is also possible. So it's about where it becomes that challenge for you. As I said, for 770, I don't need to do any of this. But if I need 800, if I tell myself I want an 800 in the GMAT, then I will do all of this. It is not something that I won't do, right? And why about talking about only these guys? No? Even the very best do it. Messi changed his diet. Messi, everybody knows, is God's gift to this thing. But in 2012 or 13, he decided that if he wants to perform at a particular level for the rest of his this thing, he actually, if he needs to compete with Ronaldo, for whatever amount of time, though people might say there's no competition, but he actually changed his diet. He apparently liked a lot of junk food before, some fried food, this and that, and he changed his diet. Magnus Carlsen, the highest ELO rated chess player in the world, right? Maybe then, hence, possibly the smartest man on the planet. He runs on a treadmill every day for close to 2 hours. You might, chess is a this thing. He says that running on the treadmill is essential for him during a chess game for to be physically fit, to sit for 2 to 3 hours and concentrate. So Magnus Carlsen runs. So there are YouTube videos if you want to do. You don't need to go check because I've done this, research for you. Ayrton Senna, the former Formula One driver, was into advanced meditation. So he was before meditation. Now everybody knows. Way before that, he was into advanced level of meditation. And the guy who introduced to it, his guru, was or his doctor. He was saying that I've never seen somebody who could go to that level so quickly. Djokovic, when I spoke about that, there's 4 agreements. So Djokovic, everybody knows, Djokovic from the diet change, the whole gluten diet change and everything. But his doctor or his coach, that guy didn't just make him, change that. Djokovic as a person, if you see, is constantly combative, fighting, his energy is all over the place. Actually, the coach also made him, so that's how I came to know about this book called The 4 Agreements, right? So it's not a great book, but it's a pretty decent book in sense of, yeah, but those 4 things that they mention in that book is not bad. So you can download a PDF from it. So even Djokovic read a book to get into a particular way. So if all of those people can do it, I'm sure all of us, the rest of us, who are, say, normal people, right? These people are at a different level, can definitely do it. So it's, and if you see, I spoke about each thing being different. One diet, one treadmill, one meditation, and reading it. So all of those people also do it. This is not just for the cat. One big thing to think of is this is just for the cat. This is not just for the cat, but life in general, says the demands on your time or energy are only going to increase. Right? I wish somebody taught me all of these things much earlier. Right, in terms of, as if it was a if it was a daily practice, for me. I have a student who told me that, sir, my father used to, get into this art of living and meditation, and he used to get a lot of stress and anxiety because of exams. And my father introduced me to breathing and pranayama and meditation. And he says, so during prep only, he said, so now I was, I had written somewhere, he said, sir, I can identify with it because my father introduced me to it, and now I'm much calmer than before, because in childhood I used to have those issues. Because you need to understand, this is not just for this, it's only going to increase. B school is going to be a highly stressful environment. It is maybe, if whatever sleep you are getting right now, half of that, you have to maybe operate with 4 or 5 hours of sleep. Your first years as a professional, You'll get married after that. You'll have children after that. The number of people you interact with in your professional life, because as you're going more and more senior, that means so many more people are under you, right? And the stakes of your job role. So do you realize that as you are going at, there is no chill time later where you're going to put your feet up and enjoy. There is no chill time that is going to happen. You might think, okay, cat ho jayega to life masti hai. There is no masti in life, right? So that's not how life is. If you don't have work and if you don't want anything, so you'd have to understand that this is something. If you look at it from that long term, this thing, it is going to really help you, right? And maybe the most important thing is nothing happens naturally. We want everything to happen naturally. What do we mean by natural? I'll do whatever I'm doing, the world obviously and everything else around me to change to make things perfect for me. So your parents won't be perfect, your boss won't be perfect, your body won't be perfect, your what you call your mind won't be perfect, nothing will be perfect. Everything has to be managed. That is something that you'd have to accept. The golden rule: practice is theory. What do I mean by practice is theory? Whatever I've said so far, right? Unless it becomes practice, it is practice is the real theory. Otherwise, it's just words. It won't matter. Whatever I've said so far does not matter at all unless one practices. And don't waste any time going and going and trying to Google Djokovic's book. Did he read this or read that? All of that is a waste of time. Just directly figure out a few things as to how to do and get into that practice. What are the other resources? So upcoming posts on Cat Writer. So the blog that I keep speaking about, it's thecatwriter.com, right? The Cat Writer. So then I've just put up QA percentile 2. There will be QA percentile 3. There will be DILR percentile, all 3 parts. Improving your VA accuracy, also 3 parts will be there. On the top of that page, thecatwriter.com, you can see the categories. So on the categories, just click the category and you'll find the post, right? The next webinar I will do, I wanted people to take a few SIMCATs, at least say 5 to 6 SIMCATs. And as I said, there is a repeater crowd and there is a fresher crowd also. So how to analyze a SIMCAT? I thought unless people take a few SIMCATs, I shouldn't be doing it. So I'll be doing that session. That will be my next webinar that I will do. Learning to learn math. So if those of you who have seen learning to learn math, the weighted averages thing, I'll be doing something on ratios then. For all the past webinars, you'll find it on IMS India YouTube channel, as well as on the on my blog as well. You can find that. Right? So that's what I wanted more or less to speak about, because we do not know whether the CAT is going to happen in November or not. Right? The IIM Indore guys said it's going to happen in November. And they said it's going to happen in a proctored on-ground environment. They are not going to do online proctored, right? So it can be, the only realistic way I can see that happening is if the CAT is conducted in colleges and like always in a physical environment, but it cannot happen over 2 days in 2 slots because of distancing and everything else. They might end up doing it over a week or 2 weeks, or like way back, they might even do it over a month, with people and maintaining social distancing and everything else, so that the number of, because to find the colleges also might not be that very easy. Right? So we are looking at a case where the test might not be November one day. It might actually, and you might have your test in December or what, and we do not know actually what the situation is going to be like. The reason I wanted to take this session was, given all of these uncertainties, how you manage yourself from now to then is very, very in that long haul. How do you manage till then? Yeah. So I hope this session was useful. It might have seemed much more generic and not as specific. The reason I didn't do that specific sessions was that it will get into a specific session completely separately. So that is separate. So I hope this was useful. I'll take a few questions right now. Right, any of the questions that we'd want to answer. Right? As I started preparation in July, Mahesh says that, I'm a little worried. Is there enough time to prepare, for this thing? I think there is absolutely enough and more time. July we have, so it's not very late. You have enough and more time. My energy levels are good during night and but I'm not able to study in the morning. Would that create an issue later? Kajal, now this can be an issue in the sense that the test can be either test is not at night, test is morning slot or afternoon slot. So somewhere closer, not right now, but say going closer to the test, maybe say in say September, October, you'll have to start maybe taking the test and start shifting your practice to a morning time and not at a night time. Right? So a lot of people know this, that during the test, as you get closer to the test, last 1 month, you're supposed to take tests also in the same slot as your actual test. So if it's an afternoon slot, you should shift your slots to the afternoon. Right? After studying for a long time, when I sleep, questions keep on coming in. And then it's a good thing that after studying for long, the questions keep on coming, that question here. So see, I also think about the questions, which is why I'm saying, so maybe before you sleep, you need to consciously make an effort to say completely unwind and say, zone out. So maybe focusing on the breath is very important. Right? Nowadays, study is completely online, so frustrating to look at a screen for a long time. I know, Ruchi, it's frustrating to look at a screen for a long time. So you'd have to find ways to, what you call, parcel that time out. So absolutely, I must say 3 hours at a stretch, because you have to anyway look at the screen for 3 hours at a stretch in CAT. So 3 hours in the morning and maybe taking a break and doing that later. Joy says, can we do meditation for 15 minutes before the test? See, whether you like it or not, and the actual test day, you will be left with enough and more time on your own. Right? You have to go wait there in the test center. So doing breathing exercises, meditation, whatever it is before the test, right? You should not be in a rushed mode. That's all I can say. So before the test, so don't just say do something else and immediately jump to a test, right? So ease out a bit, completely, calm down, talk to yourself, ensure that you do some breathing, and then you start. How can we cope up with time? Amrita, I'm not able to cope up with time if you don't have time to work that separately. So from morning, Purvi says, morning till night, we spend maximum on the laptop, including college classes, CAT. At the end of the day, we get too tired, we have headache or eye pain. How do we manage, our timings, for the same? So see, Purvi, if you have this issue that say from morning to night, maximum time, you have college classes and CAT classes and self-study and whatever it is. So maybe what you can do is before your, you need to have a sufficient gap, or maybe take some sort of a nap, or say, maybe you have to change this thing where you're getting some rest and your prep time. So either you say that your core prep that you're doing on your own, you do that first thing early in the morning before anything starts, or you take a nap after everything, after the other things are over, and then do the preparation, at night before you start the preparation. So where you're actually having a fairly decent amount of eyes, your eyes are shut for a fairly decent amount of time before you're doing your prep on your own. Prashant says concentration problem. Yeah, Prashant's concentration issue, as I said, if you do the breathing exercise, one of the main things that improves concentration, because you're supposed to concentrate on your breath. And Brahmi is also good for concentration and alertness because it actually tamps you down. So that will. So all of these say, creating a ritual, Prashant, creating some sort of a ritual for yourself and doing these exercises will actually help you with that. Sir, how and when to prepare for CAT when I have 5 hours every day lecture of my college? Vishal, you have 5 days, of your college. The only pain is that these five hours every day is online. You have to look at a screen, right? But otherwise, you had to travel to college and get back, right? So I'm sure earlier, your college was 9 to whatever time. My college was, used to start at 9, and then by the time I used to have to leave at 8, and I used to reach back home only by say 5 or 6, right? So it's only 5 hours. You have 24 hours in a day, Vishal, and you have to do the math there. After each bad test, Arya says, after each bad test, the thought of CAT having gone by point, it persists in the back of mind, hampering concentration. So Arya, don't look at a bad test. After the test, don't think about say CAT going down the drain. Don't pin your hopes to every test. You will not see your best score before October, before September, October. It will take that much time. What is more important is you needing to know what happened, right? What did I not do right? Was my technique on RC, did I not execute? Did I do on gut feel? Was my selection a problem? Is my silly mistakes a problem? If you can tag your performances and say what caused that problem, not following processes, not having technique, not doing selection, what is it that led to that, then you'll be able to, so it's not, the last SimCat, I feel like going blank by the time. Snehaditya, exactly what you said, mind going blank is pure lack of, energy. Because it would just have been a tube. There is no more glucose left and your mind has gone blank. So what you should do is, you should really, think about, say, taking a test at a different time, maybe where you have a lot of energy. Right? Yeah. Another thing, say, if all of you are taking stress about taking a SIM card exactly in the slot, right? So suppose you plan to take the SIM card, but something from work has come, right? Or some other thing has come. Taking it in that slot is not sacrosanct. So despite not having energy, no, I will take, somehow I will manage to come and take everything exactly. It doesn't matter, because the only thing that you will not get is an all India rank. Your percentile that you will get even outside the slot is absolutely accurate, right? Why don't we not give you an all India rank and everything? Because we think they might be cheating. You might see the review, people might copy and all of that, right? But the percentile you will get, so as long as you are taking the test sincerely, right, there is nothing wrong with, say, taking the test when you have the best energy. Because the other thing, because that is what's happening, so don't bother, don't say put too much pressure and forcibly take it to a slot. The SIM card, having a bad SIM card after a few decent ones mean I'm on the wrong track. Not necessarily, Weber. It's not as a one odd SIM track. Think about yourself like a sportsman. One bad innings, right? You are going out to play, so you can have the bad innings once or twice. So it's not going to. So don't take everything here. So if you can go back to say, actually, on this just what went wrong. So every time if you go back to what went wrong, because it cannot be that something happened, I don't know. If something happened, I don't know, that means, there is a problem. But if exactly, okay, in this test, I didn't select properly, or because I got comfortable or complacent in the last few tests, I was doing fairly well. So I actually didn't execute my processes properly. Every time I make a mistake, I know that I do that because I became complacent and didn't follow my own process. For any question, I thought I'll quickly get this answer and then I do it. That is why, yeah. Divyanshu, yeah, how to calm your overthinking mind again, which is why I said, those books that I spoke about reading and creating a simple ritual of pranayama exercises and reading a chapter of that book, that will really help that a lot, honestly. And also, taking that Ashwagandha and Brahmi, both of those things that will help you. Gokul says, sir, working in a working profession in a product-based company, it's really hard to set up a time to study. And this is kind of impeding prep. Gokul, that is, I know that there is nothing that we can do. All you'd have to do is give as little amount of, be there, work, but work in that battery saving mode, and say every single step that you take in terms of time that you set aside for preparation, ensure that you're slightly rested, and you do whatever is required to have some energy, and say use that very preciously. That's what is the only thing. Unfortunately, there we what you need, your work, if you need to work, you can work, but see if you can do your exact 8 hours of work that you need to do, or 9 hours or 10 hours, and can you spend less energy. My mind keeps wandering in an exercise that I should solve in an hour and I take 3. What should I do? Khushi, like I said, all of these practices, exercise, breathing, reading this, meditation, all of those things help concentration. Right? How do you manage work and studies when the timings are very stringent? I know the time is tough, Nidhi, but you need to figure out every time. You need to, as I said, figure out at work also. All of yourself, ask yourself at work one question: are you completely there and finishing it off with very very little, what you call, are you doing it in the most energy optimal way, Nidhi, or are you maybe say, spending more energy there? So I found that, I also have different modes of working. When I'm very involved this thing, I end up say speaking a lot, or maybe I did say too many things, or rather, there's a lot of energy expenditure to do the same thing. But when I know that today I have to write a blog, I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to focus on this prep, automatically I ensure that I speak very little, I'm to the point, and when I'm doing that work, it's just that. Somehow there is no, I reduce the dispersion of energy. Yeah, okay. So, look, guys, we'll wrap up. Thanks a lot. Hope this session was useful, right? And I know it was maybe slightly different from whatever sessions I usually do, but at this stage I thought maybe this sort of a session will help. Yeah. So hopefully it worked for you guys as well. So I was very unsure when I was doing this session that so many things I'm talking about that might seem very very weird for the students as to why I'm doing that. So but I hope still it was useful. Yeah. Thanks a lot, guys. Bye bye. Yeah.